All right, here we are in the second floor area of the Marriott down here in Tampa. And what I want to talk about is a little bit about window lighting. Now, our sun is going in and out right now, and it's kind of a diffused sun right now. The clouds are going in between. It's kind of wispy or whatever. Wind's blowing like crazy. So we're going to see the lighting go in and out here. But what I want everybody to notice is, you see what kind of lighting pattern we got starting out on our bride's face right here? What we've got is our loop lighting pattern starting out one more time here. I'm going to clean it up just a bit. I'm going to ask Toby just to turn her head slightly towards towards the light. So now when we look at the lighting on her face, the light's coming in here and creating a very, very soft loop lighting on her face. Remember, in our very first series of videos with our on-camera flash, we talked about how the light source, the larger it is relative to the subject's face, the softer the shadows are. Well, this is a pretty big window behind us. It's kind of a diffuse sunny lit day here, so we've got a very, very broad light source, which is why we can just barely see the shadow edge here. It's just barely defined because we're working with this large light source behind me relative to our bride. But now, as we look at her face, notice we have highlight here, we got highlight over here, but notice how the eyes seem to be in darkness. Well, let's say socketed just a bit, kind of the raccoon eyes. It's because with window light, we don't have the luxury of moving the light relative to the subject. We have to move the subject relative to the light. So how am I going to get light in her eyes? Well, what I'm going to do is just ask Toby to tilt her head this way just a little bit more, chin up a little, turn your head a little bit more. And now look how her eyes just lit up when we did that little maneuver. That's because most of our light is coming from a pretty high vantage point. So I literally have to pose her head right to the light. And then from right here then, I can go ahead and take a couple of photographs. But then what happens if I want to put her in a 2/3 view? If I want to have her looking out or whatever, leaning into the bouquet or whatever, I couldn't do that very well right here. In fact, why don't we do it just for fun? Toby, bring your flowers up here and lean your head this way into them. Bring them really over here. And now look what, turn your head a little bit more, chin down a little bit more. Look what's happened. Again, we've shadowed her eyes, not very flattering when we're photographing our bride here. Again, in this case, we're constrained by the direction of light since we have no control over it. And when we're in that position, we have to pose the subject to the light and not really have the light going where we want it to be. It's locked in place. So we've got to continue to remember, pose the subject to the light in this case. Okay. I've kind of reoriented myself just a bit. Toby, I want you to turn your head even more. Just your head, good. Chin down a little bit more. Let's tilt your head this way so I can get the light in the eye. Great, they just lit up. So now I've got her in that loop lighting pattern, but do you see how I have to keep posing her to the light to make that happen? I've got a nice background behind me here, some pillars, some of the interesting fixtures here. Let's just get a couple of them. Terrific. I've got my on-camera flash firing as well, just to give me that little bit of fill, but I think we're really getting some pretty photographs here. Again, I don't have any nasty shadows in here because it's going pretty far into the distance. We're not really seeing that much at all. So anyway, I think that covers this. I'm going to try to pull off a profile here, and then we're just going to kind of work the area for natural light, see what we can get before we have to leave the Marriott. So let's move on to our next view of the face, the profile view with window lighting.